So I am in the strange position of being the owner of a technology business that uses generative AI, but the technology business supports workers' rights. How does that work? I thought AI was just exploitation of workers and was eventually going to replace workers. Well, I think this is a really interesting conversation because I don't understand why that is the inevitability of generative AI. The first thing is, if you don't know a lot about how Gen AI works, it is not some kind of intelligence in any sense that we might imagine. It's more like a very clever typewriter that calculates with each word whether or not the next word makes the most sense to say. There is no intelligence behind it, but it is an incredibly powerful tool. And I think that's maybe part of the problem here, is when you imagine it as this kind of all-powerful sentient thing, it feels inevitable and it feels like there is only kind of one path for it to go down. But when you just imagine it as a very powerful tool that is sometimes very useful and sometimes not very useful, then you start to ask what I think is the critical question. Who is using the tool and for what purpose? And that's the question I want more people to ask. What are you using this tool for? Are you using it to exploit people? Are you using it to help people? Are you using it to bring more things to more people who need it? Or are you using it to hoard wealth and hoard power for yourself? We see lots of examples of the latter, and I don't think very many exciting examples of the former, which is why I'd like to shout about how we use generative AI. I am not a lawyer, but I run a legal technology company. And the reason I do is because when I looked at the fact that nobody can afford legal services in the UK, I thought, why? It doesn't feel like it's that deep having to represent yourself, do these legal things. Can't we just use technology to make that easier? When I talk to you about Vala on a channel like this, I'm telling you about what it can do for you. I'm telling you about our free tools that help you understand your problem. I'm telling you about our amazing coaches. But fundamentally, what we are doing at Vala at like a high level is that we are reinventing legal services. And they need to be reinvented because they're not fit for purpose. If 90% of the British population can't afford a lawyer when something goes wrong at work, then that's just not working. That is not an industry that works. And the way that we are reinventing legal services is by taking apart every single step of the problem, looking at it and saying, does a lawyer need to do this? Or could the person do it themselves? Could the person do it themselves aided by technology? Or could technology do it entirely? And then for each little piece, we put back in a new version, and then we try that, and we say, oh, that worked well. And then we keep taking those pieces out and asking that question over and over. We've been doing it for years now. That is how we are building these new types of legal services that are actually affordable for everyone. And that is using, as one of the tools, generative AI. And one of the results of that is that more people can afford to get legal advice. Because if we do all the preparation of a case, for example, before the lawyer comes on and talks to you, then they don't have to read through every single document to start asking the most important questions. They can get a summary with the key things highlighted and dive in from there, and then hear it straight from your mouth. Oh no, I didn't actually say it quite like that. I said it this way instead. So they know what questions to ask much more quickly so that you don't have to pay them as much money. And I think that there are thousands of applications of this very powerful tool just like this. There are thousands of places across our work, our society, where people just fundamentally cannot access something that would make their life better or would reduce pain in their lives because it's trapped away into something that is just too expensive or too hard to reach. That is where these kinds of tools are interesting, are inspiring, could create more wealth, could create more justice, more fairness in society. And that is a choice that we can make with this tool. But the first step is to start asking the question that way, rather than just assuming that exploitation because of generative AI is inevitable.